You've probably heard that Windows 8 is very different from earlier versions of Windows, and it is. But the good news is that Windows 8.1 brings back many of the features that went missing when Windows 8 first came out, making it much easier to use. If you have Windows 8, you can download 8.1 for free. Just go to Microsoft.com and click Downloads to find the most recent updates. Windows 8 offers a completely new computing experience. If you've used Windows before, the first thing you'll notice is it looks totally different. Microsoft has moved a lot of things around, and it may take you a while to figure out how to do even the most basic tasks, like finding your files or switching to a different program. One reason why they've made so many changes is they wanted Windows 8 to run on tablets as well as desktops and laptops. There are actually two different views in Windows 8. Right now, we're looking at the Start screen. The other view is the desktop, which looks very similar to earlier versions of Windows. Chances are, you'll use both of these views for different tasks, and you'll get used to switching back and forth. Let's take a look at the Start screen. You can click on an app to open it. Unlike earlier versions of Windows, apps don't open in a window, they fill the entire screen. But if you prefer multitasking, you can drag the app to the side and then open a second app. To close apps, just move your mouse to the top of the screen. If you're using a tablet, you can close apps by dragging them down. Now let's take a moment to look at the desktop. This view is pretty similar to earlier versions of Windows, but it's gone through some changes, most notably involving the Start button. When Windows 8 first came out, the Start button had been removed, but a lot of users found it hard to adjust to using a desktop without a Start button. So Microsoft brought it back in the 8.1 update, but it functions a little differently than before. The Start button used to display a list of programs and shutdown options. Now clicking it brings you back to the Start screen, so you can access your programs and apps, as well as shutdown options, and a new search button. While you're on the Start screen, you may notice some tiles changing. These are live tiles. They let you see information on the tile itself without even clicking on it. That means you can see the weather, news headlines, and more right from your Start screen. To get the most out of Windows 8, you'll want to go to OneDrive.com to create a free Microsoft account if you don't already have one. This will let you use Microsoft's online services. For example, you can use OneDrive to store your documents, photos, and other files in the cloud. You can also store your calendar, contacts, and more online. Why is this important for Windows 8? Well, you can log in with your Microsoft account, and it will automatically pull your calendar, emails, photos, and more so you can access them easily from your Start screen. The coolest part of this is that you can log into any computer that has Windows 8, and all of your settings and your OneDrive files will be there. Now, if you're wondering where all your old files and folders are, don't worry. You can still get them by going to the desktop and navigating to the folder you want. And many of your existing programs will still run from the desktop view, although you should do some research to find out whether they are Windows 8 compatible. As you can see, Windows 8 has introduced a lot of changes. If you're not comfortable relearning how to use your computer, then you may want to stick with your current version for now. But if you're really into new technology and you like the idea of storing your files in the cloud, chances are you'll feel right at home in the new Windows 8. In this video, we're going to go over the basics of navigating through Windows 8, and we'll also talk about using the Charms bar to access your settings and other options. The first thing you're going to see is the lock screen. You can click to go to the login screen. If you want to log in as a different user, you can click the back arrow. Otherwise, type your password and then press Enter. The Start screen will appear by default. In Windows 8.1, you can actually change this so that it boots straight to the desktop, just like earlier versions of Windows. We'll show you how to do this at the end of the video. If you'd like to go to the desktop, you can either click the tile that says Desktop or hold down the Windows key on your keyboard and press D. And here you can manage your files and folders the way you would in earlier versions of Windows. To go back to the Start screen, you can press the Windows key on your keyboard, or the Start button in the lower left corner. At this point, you may want to explore some of the built-in apps, for example, the Travel app. You can switch back to the last app you just used by clicking in the upper left corner or by pressing Alt-Tab. When you're done using the app, you can click the Close button in the upper right corner. Or, if you're using a tablet, just drag the app down to close it. If you have several apps open at once, you can switch between them by hovering in the upper left corner and then moving the mouse down and selecting the app that you want. To view two apps at once, you can just click the top of the app and drag it to the left or right, and then select the other app that you'd like to see. Whether you're viewing the Start screen, the desktop, or an app, you can use the Charms bar to access several different options. Just hover the mouse in the lower right or upper right corner of the screen. Each of these icons is called a charm. The Search charm lets you find apps, files, and settings on your computer. However, a simpler way to search is to go to the Start screen and type the name of the file or app that you're looking for. The Share charm is basically a copy and paste feature that lets you send information, such as a photo or web address, from one app to another. The Start charm is just a different way to switch to the Start screen. The Devices charm will show you the printers and other devices you have connected to your computer. And the Settings charm lets you access settings for the current app, as well as general settings for your computer. If you're looking for the Control panel, you can get to it by switching to the desktop, then going to the Settings charm, and clicking Control Panel. Earlier, I mentioned that Windows 8.1 lets you boot straight to the desktop instead of to the Start screen. To do this, go to the desktop. Right-click the taskbar and select Properties. A dialog box will appear. Click the Navigation tab, then select the box next to When I sign in or close all apps on a screen, go to the desktop instead of Start. Now, logging in brings you straight to the desktop. And those are all the basics of navigating with Windows 8. The desktop is an important part of Windows 8 because it allows you to organize all of your files and folders, and also run apps that aren't designed to run on the Start screen. If you're upgrading from an earlier version, you probably already know how to get around the desktop. But keep in mind that since there's no Start menu in Windows 8, you'll need to use the Start screen or Charms bar to access some of the features. When you're on the Start screen, you can switch to the desktop by clicking the desktop tile, or by holding down the Windows key on your keyboard and pressing D. The desktop includes the desktop background, also known as the wallpaper, and the taskbar at the bottom of the screen. As you may already know, Microsoft brought back the Start button with the 8.1 update, and you'll use this to switch to the Start screen. The taskbar also contains shortcuts to commonly used apps and settings, such as the Action Center and the sound volume. To open an app, you can click the icon on the taskbar, or if there's a shortcut on the desktop, you can double-click it. If you don't see the app you're looking for, you'll need to switch to the Start screen. The Start screen may not show all of your apps by default. If you're on a tablet, swipe up from the middle of the screen to view all apps. But if you're on a computer, just click the arrow at the bottom of the screen. When you've found the app you're looking for, you can click it to open it, or you can add it to your taskbar by right-clicking it and selecting Pin to Taskbar. This way, it will be easy to find the next time you want to open it. To access your files and folders, you'll use a specialized program called File Explorer, which was previously known as Windows Explorer. You can open it by clicking the folder icon on the taskbar, or by double-clicking any folder on your desktop. If you want to navigate to a different folder, you can select a different location on the left side of the window. And once you find the file that you want, you can double-click it, and it will open in the default program for that file type. Now, it's important to note that some of the files open with the Start Screen apps by default. In this case, it opened with the Photos app. But you can easily go back to the desktop by pressing the Windows key and D on your keyboard. If you would prefer to open a file with a different app, you can right-click the file, go to Open With, and select the app you want. And to close this, I'm just going to click the X in the upper right corner. To delete a file, you can select it and press the Delete key, or you can click and drag it to the recycle bin. If you're sure you want to permanently delete the file, right-click the recycle bin and select Empty Recycle Bin. These are just the very basics of using the desktop, and all of these things will become very natural to you as you get more practice with Windows 8. A user account is a name or email address that you use to sign into Windows 8. By default, your computer has one user account, but if you have several people using the computer, you may want to create a separate account for each person. To create new accounts, you'll need to be signed in as an administrator. If you only have one account, then it will be an administrator account, so you may not need to worry about this. Open the Charms bar by hovering the mouse in the lower right corner and select Settings. And then change PC settings. Then click Accounts and select Other Accounts. Then add an account. At this point, you have two options. If you have a Microsoft account, then you can type your email address here, or you can just create a local account by clicking Sign in without a Microsoft account. But it is best to use a Microsoft account because it lets you use the Windows Store to buy apps, and it also makes it easier to access your contacts, bookmarks, files, and more when you're on a different computer. To go to the next page, click Next. If you're creating this account for a child, then you can check this box to turn on parental controls. But you can always turn those on later if you prefer. Click Finish to create the account. To switch to the new account, click the account name in the upper right corner, and then select the new account. Then type the password and press Enter. When you're signing into a new account for the first time, or signing into an existing account on a different computer, you may be prompted to answer a few questions first. Just follow the directions on the screen, and then Windows will set up your account, which may take a few minutes. Now, if you have a Microsoft account, and you go to visit a friend or relative who has Windows 8, you can add your account to their computer using the same procedure that we just used. And then you can log in and access your files and bookmarks. Once you've created your accounts, you can manage them from the control panel, and there's a shortcut for getting there from the Start screen. Just type Control Panel and press Enter. Then click User Accounts and Family Safety. Then User Accounts, and then Manage Another Account. This will show you a list of all the accounts on your computer. Every computer is going to have at least one administrator account, but by default, the other accounts that you create are standard accounts. If you want, you can promote a standard account to an administrator so that that person can make changes to any of the settings on the computer. But you may not want to use an administrator account all the time, as it makes it easier to accidentally change important settings. A better solution is to give everybody a standard account and only log on to the administrator account when you need to change something. But if you are sure that you want to promote the account, click on it and then select Change the Account Type. Then choose Administrator and click Change Account Type. I'm going to click Manage Another Account to bring us back to the list of accounts. If you'd like to turn on parental controls, you can click Set up Family Safety, and then select the account that you want to change. It should be noted, though, that in order to edit parental controls, at least one account will need to be set to child. If activity reporting is turned on, you'll be able to see which apps and web pages your child is using by clicking View Activity Reports. And below, you have several options for controlling what types of content your child can access. You can turn on web filtering to control what types of websites they can visit. Time limits lets you control how much computer time they have. Windows Store and game restrictions let you select which ratings you want to allow for apps and games. And app restrictions lets you choose the specific apps your child is allowed to use. You can change these settings however you want, and you can always come back to the control panel whenever you want to change any of your settings for your accounts and parental controls.